Somewhere in these mountains, a man accused of mass murder is in hiding. This is not Afghanistan, and he's not bin Laden. Radovan Karadzic has been on the wanted list of the International Criminal Court in The Hague for 7 years. He's accused of genocide in Bosnia, so why is he still free? Using a secret locations list supplied by Bosnian intelligence, we track his latest hideouts and ask why the lives of so many Bosnians come so cheap.
Appears to be closing in on Radovan Karadzic, the former Bosnian Serb leader who's wanted on charges of genocide. NATO troops surrounded a village in Bosnia.
It took September the 11th to start the real hunt for Karadžić. In this remote village of Karadžić, the US launched their first serious attempt to lift him. It was a spectacular failure. The houses were still burning when I came to these mountains 10 years ago for the Guardian newspaper. Then Karadžić was warning of the extermination of the Muslims. This is Karadžić country, eastern Bosnia. Outsiders are not welcome.
Okay, put away the camera, there's some police. Let's go and sort of say hello. So where did the helicopters come? From what direction?
Odavde za lijeganje, odavde uzme za lijeganje i onda ovdje pored drveća, ovdje prvo. Da, oni su računali da je ova zgrada. Oni su računali da je ova zgrada sklonište, pravo. Evo ova zgrada, ovdje baš ova zgrada i crkva ova. Evo crkva je tu u blizini, pa ćete evo da vidite evo ovdje svaka vrata. Svaka vrata, slobodno snimite, približite.
Can we see this gentleman? Can we see what's in here?
Imam prodavnicu mješovite vama robe, još i drži mi krompiri, sve živo, luk. Prehranu, brašno, ima ovo će otvoriti isto.
4 US aircraft landed at 8:35 a.m. on February the 28th. Soldiers raided the school before forcing their way into the church.
Karadžić, vjerovatno. Već odavno podaleko. Onoliko je blizu Čelebićima koliko je blizu Novi Zeland Čelebićima.
Has anyone got anything to say about Karadžić?
Bilo slučajno nekoga ko je sumnjao u Karadžića i ko bi ga predao, ne bi bilo sva blaga ovog svijeta, sva blaga ovog svijeta ne bi mogla biti dovoljna da ga neko izda. A nije on tu.
The years on the run have turned Karadžić into a Serbian folk hero. Heroes are hard to catch. At least that's one of the excuses used by the international forces.
Is it a bit embarrassing, frankly, that, you know, the world is looking on, S4's there's a huge raid, it's commandos, it's whatever, and the guy gets away? I mean, is it humiliating?
Well, we're deeply disappointed. I think Lord Robertson said that as well. However, you know, we have gained more information. We've had moderate success in this weapons cache that was seized on the 28th of February, and we're certainly feeling that we're very close to getting him. S4 feels that we got really close to finding Karadžić, and I'm not going to be able to give you the information that leads us to feel that way. But we feel we came very close.
What is very close? So 20 miles, 30 miles, 10 minutes? How close?
Close enough. He got away, but we got a lot of good information.
It's a very handy get-out for S4 to say, we don't discuss operational details. You know, the question is, why haven't you got the guy?
Well, let me just say that the reason we don't discuss operational details is because secrecy and security on these sorts of operations are paramount.
Also, operational details on these sorts of operations are at best embarrassing. It's taken 7 years to begin the search for Karadžić. To find out why it's taken so long, I go to the Bosnian intelligence service based in Sarajevo. They're the people that supply the US with their information. The 7th floor of the Holiday Inn in Sarajevo was where I first met Dr. Radovan Karadzic. That was 10 years ago, 3 days before he began the siege on a city that would claim over 10,000 lives.
To control the surroundings of
The US is now planning to pull most of her troops out of Bosnia. There are other wars to fight. Catching Karadžić after 7 years is now their exit strategy. The US ambassador in Sarajevo admits the operation has been stepped up.
I think it's in part because of September 11th, and in part because of the delay that you're talking about.
You know, Karadžić is allegedly responsible for the killing of over 7,000 men in Srebrenica alone. In very cold terms, the disaster of the World Trade Center, that it seems that, you know, suddenly the focus is all on bin Laden and not on Karadžić.
I think there is a question in people's mind about fairness and justice, and that these are two individuals, in particular we're talking about Mladic and Karadžić, that need to be brought to The Hague if we're going to close a very terrible chapter in local history here, and if this society is going to be able to move on and build a viable Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Given the sort of intelligence cock-up that happened, there are people who would say that could it be that it's not, as Machiavelli says, what's done, but what's seen to be done? Huge, high-profile operation, Americans involved, we're going to go in there and get Karadžić, when actually you hadn't a hope of getting him. Sources we've spoken to said that he wasn't there, that it was, you know, it was for show.
I disagree with that, and I don't believe it's a cock-up. We, I think, are pretty certain that Karadžić is in that general region. We're ready to act on information as we get it, and we're serious about making these attempts. And I'm very hopeful that at the end of the day, they'll produce results.
But so where is he now?
After 10 years covering this story, there are old contacts to call up in Sarajevo. The same people who are supplying the Americans with their intelligence. It takes time, a lot of calls, but finally, as always, they come through.
After nearly 2 months of requests from Bosnian intelligence, we finally got the list. And the list is a compilation of all the places where object number 1, as I refer to him, has been in the last 18 months. We're going to bring this list to somebody who can verify it. And from there we go looking to where Dr. Karadžić has spent the last couple of years and try and understand how he's managed to hide out for so long.
The man we checked it with once spied on Karadžić. We've disguised his voice. He didn't want to be identified.
In a place called Konsko near Trebinje.
And you've done those. So what's your impression of that list?
Well, very reasonable. And I know some of those places.
You know, people talk about he has 80 bodyguards, he has 12. We've heard over the years many different figures. At this stage, how many people are around?
Well, I can't tell you exactly how many people he has now. I mean, bodyguards. But he constantly has between 8 and 12 people.
Communications, they use mobile phones? Do they use sat phones?
Yes, he used phone communications. He had a satellite phone. But I don't know at the moment what kind of communications he has. That's one of the things that the S4 can cover very easily. They can locate you to within 1 meter of where you are.
Do you think it's dangerous for him not to be in eastern Bosnia, given the climate with S4?
Well, he's always on the border. The border between Bosnia and Montenegro and Serbia. It's like Swiss cheese. It's not so hard to cross the border. It's very, very easy.
So we set out to follow in Karadžic's footsteps. The list of locations included 6 monasteries, a military barracks, 2 mountain lodges, and 10 private houses, all in remote parts of Bosnia and Montenegro. But first we headed for the place he was born, Petnica, in the Dormitor Mountains. The mountains of Radovan Karadzic's birthplace, where his father raped and murdered a cousin. The village of Petnica, where his family lived and died. Here the children of the mountain didn't grow up like Karadžić, to mingle with world statesmen. His cousin Vuško still lives here.
So brother, Radovan je u Vuk. Radovan's house.
He was born here.
Oh, we can go in.
Life was very hard, poor, painful. We worked from dawn to dusk to feed everybody.
We heard the story that he had to make his own football.
Yes, we used to roll up a sweater, stitch it up with a needle and play football. We made do. That's all we had. There was no radio, no TV, nothing.
When he was young, could you see that ambition? Did he have bigger ideas for himself? Did you feel that from him as a child?
Let me tell you a story. Here in this house, my granny came over. He was 6 months old. His mother, Jovanka, complained to my granny, "My child cries all the time." Granny replied, "You don't have enough breast milk for him. You must give him cream from the cow's milk. Your child is hungry. That's why he cries all the time." So she took him over to the window, and as the story goes, she saw a birthmark on him. "He's going to be an important man one day," Granny said. Our living saint.
Karadžić's village wasn't the right place to ask where their local hero might be now. But his birthplace says much about the man.
He was a poor boy from the mountains who some say was never accepted in Sarajevo. That's why he took revenge in the city. Maybe that's all speculation. All I can see is that this was someone who came from great poverty and rose to the international stage. And as far as his community is concerned, the fact that he's now been hunted as a war criminal is some terrible mistake and some terrible conspiracy against the Serbs.
Karadžić has never had to answer the charges against him. Was it his policy to kill the civilians of Sarajevo, sometimes with snipers, sometimes with shells?
The United Nations International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia charges Radovan Karadzic with Sarajevo sniping. Part 2, counts 10 to 12. A systematic campaign of deliberate targeting of civilians by snipers of the Bosnian Serb military.
At the beginning we were hiding, but as the time went on in the war, we started going out feeling like, what the hell, if I'm gonna get killed, because you realize you can't get killed anyway, it can find you if it's really meant to be. So people started going out in these years. I remember every day before we go out, I would change my underwear just not to be embarrassed if I get wounded and get to the hospital, you know. It was a very beautiful day, 3rd of March. It was quite nice day of spring, and the beautiful sunset invited me. I was just walking down the street, watching it, and just great feeling of spring, awakening of nature. And then it hit me. I fell on the floor. I heard the bullet coming out of my body and hitting the ground behind me. And I realized I got shot. And then another civilian came and took me out, dropped me once, picked me up again, and then they took me to the hospital, and that's it. They couldn't take Sarajevo with the military, but they needed to kill the will to live.
We left Sarajevo to look for answers on Karadžić. First on our intelligence list was the Serbian Orthodox monastery, Karadžić, buried in the Bosnian mountains. According to our information, Karadžić had spent time here in the spring of 2000. At first, the monks were suspicious. Unannounced visitors weren't welcome.
Čekajte, nemojte da snimate.
You can't film.
Nemojte da snimate. Pa nemojte snimati.
We waited while the abbot considered our request for an interview. Finally, he agreed to speak to us.
We have a list of places where Radovan Karadzic is supposed to have been in the last 18 months. And on the list is this monastery. So has he ever been here?
Radovan Karadzic je ovdje bio.
Radovan Karadzic was here on the 11th and 12th of May 1996 as president of Republika Srbska. When the remains of St. Vasilie from Ostrog were brought back here to Tvrdoš Monastery for a religious ceremony. He was here together with us at an all-night vigil. He prayed with the rest of us, then he left and he never appeared here again. Nor have we seen him since that day.
In the beginning, Karadžic's aim was to carve a pure Serbian state from Bosnia. The rest of the people would have to go. Serb paramilitaries burned non-Serbs from these houses. 2.2 million people fled Bosnia. Now, despite an international troop presence, the whole country is still heavily armed.
4204.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, ammunition to shotgun go chhodinu. Yeah, you can leave that. Shotguns.
18,000 highly trained troops in Bosnia, busy looking under beds for illegal weapons.
I think within the national psyche, a good Serb always has a weapon at home. There's a huge amount of weapons and ordnance here, and every day we find more and more.
The Karadžić legacy is still in Bosnia. It's old hunting rifles like these that the Serb farmers used to drive their neighbours to the detention camps that shocked the world.
Quick, have a look around inside, please.
The United Nations International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia charges Radovan Karadzic with genocide, crime against humanity. Part 1, counts 1 to 2. Detention facilities. Civilians were interned where they were murdered, raped, and tortured.
Among all the terrible tortures that went on, women were also sexually abused. It's hard for me to talk about, but I am one of those women who was sexually abused by a man who wasn't selective, and I don't think that any of the women were spared from him. Your day starts in the morning when you arrive and count the dead. And then quietly, of course, because you couldn't say it loudly or the guards would hear you, we asked each other how many did you count, and seeing them lying on the lawn, we would look at their clothes and try to guess who they were. The ones targeted were the intellectuals. Judges, doctors, engineers, all respectable people. I think I could have ended up here too. I always look for friends, my relatives, people I knew. But I'm especially interested in finding all those women who never left Omarska. This is the skeleton and clothes of my friend from Prijedor, Mohamed Egelic. They found his driving license. He only spent one day in Omarska.
There are over 350 bodies here. Only 15 have been identified so far. And in the end, the Serbs of Bosnia were left with all this. A ruined country. Anyone who can leave has left. UN soldiers patrol the streets, watching the backs of the old. They are the only non-Serbs who dare return, too tired for death in exile. This is Karadžic's kingdom. Now the world wants to lock up the Serb prince as a war criminal. The UN in Bosnia is run by Jacques Klein. The country frustrates him deeply. Karadžic's freedom confines him. He knows it influences every aspect of society.
I keep urging him now, press on. You need to get it done. We have an election coming this year. And Karadžić is still an outstanding factor in all of this.
Klein says the big problem was that while the UN rushed in to help Bosnia after the peace deal, there was no strategy.
To be very candid, when we came into Bosnia-Herzegovina, we had no plan. In Germany and Japan after World War II, we had a plan and structure. And here we came in and said, if we stop the violence, they will stop the war, and they will rebuild their societies. But the war never ended. The war went on. Obfuscation, delay, avoidance, everything you can imagine. And we still aren't there.
These are the first recruits from Jacques Klein's new police academy. It's taken 7 years to even begin to create a police force for the infant state.
Karadžić has to be arrested. There's no doubt about that. Now, why? His continued freedom emboldens hardline Serbs to resist.
Yeah.
He's still the godfather of the SDS and the militants and hardliners in the eastern part of the RS.
Between the collective forces of the French, the British, the Germans, the Americans, surely, you know, they can get together 30 guys and get out of a helicopter and get Karadžić.
Well, it's not really that easy because there are...
Tell me, please, somebody explain.
No.
Why?
He has sympathizers.
Yeah.
You know, when you move helicopters, when a helicopter takes off from here, I'm sure there's someone out here calling someone.
Yeah.
Saying 2 Blackhawks just took off from Budenweg to do.
Yeah.
So you have to assume that many Serbs do not believe in Bosnia-Herzegovina, never have, that Karadžić has a great number of sympathizers within the official structure of governance and probably, candidly, even in the police.
But they're trying to build a new state with foundations still full of rotten wood. Of the 18 locations on our list, the largest number were monasteries. One was in the ancient city of Cetinje. This man, Radovan Karadzic, is listed as one of 3 Serb Orthodox bishops who have hidden Karadžić. We went to find Amfilochia, who was leading the ceremonies to mark the first day of Orthodox Lent. Bishop Amfilochia said he was too tired after the ceremony to speak with us. As the faithful came to kiss the holy ring of the bishop, we asked him if he might reconsider his decision.
Oui, mais j'ai une question très importante pour vous. C'est au sujet de M. le Karadžić et c'est le crime de guerre.
Je vous en prie, aujourd'hui nous avons fait.
Oui, monsieur, mais c'est important. Parce que nous avons une petite liste qui dit vous êtes le bishop qui donne le secours, le refuge aux crimes de guerre, les hommes qui font les crimes de guerre. Monsieur le Karadžić, par exemple.
Est-ce que vous avez vu ici quelques criminels de guerre?
Non, mais peut-être ils ont caché.
Avez-vous fait quelque chose de criminel aujourd'hui?
Non, pas du tout, mais c'est au sujet de la crime de guerre. Est-ce que c'est vrai que c'est à votre...
C'est pas vrai.
C'est pas vrai.
Monsieur Karadžić n'est pas à Monténégro.
Oui, mais c'est très important, oui, c'est vrai.
Pour
poser cette question. La dernière question, s'il vous plaît. La dernière question. Est-ce que l'Église serbe orthodoxe a jamais donné le refuge à M. Karadžić? Je pose la question au nom de Dieu. Est-ce qu'il est caché dans les monastères serbiens?
Non, il n'est pas caché. Il est sous la protection de Dieu. C'est ça comme tout nous. C'est tout.
Il est sous la protection de l'Église.
Toutes les humanités sont sous la protection de Dieu.
Ouais, mais...
Aussi vous, c'est sous la protection de Dieu. Aussi votre madame.
Mais je pose une question exacte.
Bénédiction de Dieu. Je vous en prie. Je vous en prie. Je vous en prie. Je vous en prie.
C'est une question très simple, s'il vous plaît.
Je vous en prie. Čoveče, izbavite mu dobro.
So we decided to head to another part of the monastery to look for some more answers.
We're now waiting while one of the other priests who speaks English is coming to talk to us and find out exactly who we are. And to check if I was really Irish, he showed me an icon of St. Patrick.
So you're Irish, huh?
Yeah.
No one in the church will admit openly to supporting Karadžić. We had to film Brother Luca in secret.
Please don't shoot me.
Here. We have a list here that comes from, basically it's intelligence sources, but also our S4 have this list. And the people who are supporting him include Bishop Radovic. He's the #1 on the list.
I told you, every member of the Serbian nation support him.
Every member of the Serbian nation support him. So as far as Radovan Karadzic is concerned, if every Serb supports him, then is it not logical that this great institution, the Serb Orthodox Church, would support him? When he needs you, when he's running from the hunters of the world.
You think he's running?
Yeah. Why can't you say it straight? That if Karadžić came here, would you offer him a place?
Of course, like anybody else.
Is the church keeping Radovan Karadzić?
No.
No.
No. I think that he must be in Herzegovina, among his people. I think everybody knows this. Go in Trebinje, ask anybody in the street, will they give him support? Everybody will say yes.
Radovan je svađe tamo gdje god pogledaš, ovdje ima Radovana na svakoj strani, nema Radovana. Sve su ovo Radovan. Sve, evo, gdje god pogledaš, sve su Radovani. Svi smo mi Radovani, nema, ne postoji jedan Radovan.
Da je to lider srpskog naroda, da će biti, stavite to, crveno slovo u kalendaru, to je naš najviši svetac. Radovan Karadzić je lider, srpski lider.
The intelligence list also names individuals in Trebinje who allegedly hid Karadžić. One of those names, Bozidar Vučurović, was the local head of Karadžić's SDS party.
And what is this on the wall here?
Sad ću da vam kažem. Ovo je slika Radovana Karadzića.
According to our information, Vučurović hid Karadžić and his bodyguards in his summer house in the woods near Dubrovnik in the summer of 2000.
Okay, thank you very much. So can we go to the house now, quickly?
Da, krenuli smo.
So why do you think your name is on this list?
Pa, znaju ljudi da sam ja ovdje bio vodeći čovjek po pitanju SDS-a, a i vlasti. Znaju da sam bio prijatelj sa Radovanom Karadzićem i sad, hvala Bogu. Dobro, bit će zgoda ako nađemo gore Radovana, možete sa njim napraviti intervju.
Yes, well, we'd like to interview him. Do you know how we can send him a message? Can you send him a message for us? Tell him we'd like to talk to him.
Ne mogu da, nažalost ne mogu poslati poruku.
This place is the perfect profile for everything we understand about Radovan. It's in the woods, it's isolated, it's in Herzegovina, he's surrounded by friends. It's perfect.
Sad ćemo mi to.
In recent months, intelligence sources watching Karadžić report that he spends less than 48 hours in one place.
Dođe.
There's not much room for all the bodyguards.
Thank you very much, thank you. Thank you
Hoćete vi još malo pregledati? Hoćete još malo pregledati kuću?
No, it's okay.
Možda je
The United Nations International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia charges Radovan Karadzic with genocide, crimes against humanity, and violations of the laws or customs of war. Counts 1 to 20. The attack on the safe area of Srebrenica and the mass executions of refugees fleeing.
There's a petrol station as you leave Srebrenica. One road goes from the petrol station to the hills. My son left with a group of people who decided to go towards the hills to reach the free territory. When he was about 10 meters away, I realized we hadn't said goodbye. I called after him, Samir, and as he turned round, I could see his profile. I said, "Good luck, my son," and he waved at me. That was the last time I saw him. We were waiting to board one of the buses when 3 Serb soldiers came up to my husband. They put a gun to his neck and said, "You're going this way." Until last year, I didn't know anything. And last year, those forensics people from Tuzla called me. They called me to identify the remains, his remains. He was exhumed. There was his ID, his pocket watch, his tracksuit, and everything he had on. I knew what he was wearing, and I recognized it all.
Kada's husband, 2 brothers, and her son were among the 8,000 men and boys who were executed over 3 July days in Srebrenica. By the end, they didn't use bullets, but bulldozed the living into mass graves. All our information was now pointing back to one monastery. I contacted our informant to ask if he had anything new from his sources. Can you talk? Are you still in Belgrade? Okay, so you're seeing him tonight, maybe? Okay, I'll call you in the morning. Thanks, Fala. In the morning, our informant told us to pose as tourists and leave our base for an isolated mountain monastery called Ostrog. We were advised that Karadžić had still been there a month ago, and that the only way to make the journey to one of the holiest sites of the Serb Orthodox Church was as pilgrims. He warned us to be careful. Okay, so what's the strategy? I think we should have a look around and see what we can see, and then I think we should just call and say we have information that he's here. Ostrog Monastery dates from the 14th century and is built deep into the rock. Let's see what the reaction is. Is that it? It's not so big, huh? We are just about to go and speak to the priests about the reports that Karadžić has been enjoying their hospitality. We're told that they are quite hostile to these kind of inquiries. So let's see what happens. I wondered why an isolated monastery would have closed-circuit TV cameras. They looked new. Karadžić has always had a special relationship with Ostrog Monastery. His grandson was christened here. It was in 1996, his last public appearance. A network of rooms stretches back into the mountain. They're closed to visitors. The main advantage of this monastery for Karadžić is its location. Total isolation. Anyone approaching can be seen for miles. it would be hard to imagine NATO troops violating a shrine like this. The chief abbot was not at home. An elderly monk had his own ideas of where Karadžić might be. Ostrog shows just how difficult it is to take him by surprise. How close had we got to him? How close can anybody get to him now? Even when the United States offered to pay the local TV stations, desperate for cash, $1,000 a second to broadcast an ad offering a reward for Karadžić, it was turned down.
Program Rewards for Justice nudi do $5 miliona američkih dolara za informacije koje će dovesti do hapšenja ili osude ratnih zločinaca, uključujući Radovana Karadzića.
In this heartland of Karadžić country, the wanted posters are torn down within minutes. The markets are full of him. Who will deliver NATO the head of a national hero? Not the current president. It's more than his job is worth. When the Hague chief prosecutor called asking for Karadžić to be handed over, he said he couldn't deliver.
So if you say your duty is to cooperate with the International Criminal Court in The Hague, do you think that when Carla Del Ponte visited you and you gave her white roses, she was satisfied with your response?
Carla Del Ponte
is the prosecutor and is also a woman, a very interesting woman, who came to visit us on Valentine's Day.
Yet somehow all the efforts of the government and the Ministry of Interior can't seem to find him. What is your problem when we can come from the UK and have a list of locations?
All the possible locations where Radovan Karadzic has stayed have been investigated by our Ministry of Internal Affairs. That means not one, not two, but many locations. Radovan Karadzic cannot be found in a single one of these. If you have any knowledge of his whereabouts here in Republika Srbska, it would be extremely welcome. Come on, finish now, I have to go.
The last question is, if Miss Del Ponte comes again, do you think that you will be in a position to offer her more than flowers next time?
We will attempt to fulfill our obligations to the tribunal according to the capabilities of Republika Srbska.
But there's no will in Republika Srbska. It's 7 years since Radovan Karadzic was indicted. It took September the 11th for the real hunt for him to even begin. Why do Bosnians have to wait for Americans to die before they can get justice?
To join our live interactive forum with Maggie O'Kane, log on to www.bbc.co.uk/correspondent, or digital satellite viewers can press the red button now. Correspondent will be taking a break next week and will return on Sunday the 2nd of June.